finished for Stanford. They finished very close in the team competition, just behind UCLA.
This is good work. He does flares, and you can see without using the pommels, he's traveled all the way across the horse, turns back around, and this time with the pommels, travels back to the other end. He's very comfortable in the flared position. You can see, spreads those legs, cranks it up to a handstand, does a full pirouette, and dismounts through the middle. Nice ending.
Conrad Voorsanger gets a 9.65, easily defeating Brad Hayashi in the pommel horse event. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to Denver, Colorado. I'm Leandra Riley along with Olympian Bart Connor. And absolutely nothing was resolved after one rotation on the women's side. That is because Lisa Panzironi and Liz Crandall both received identical 9.70s for their vault. They are moving to their second rotation, which will be the uneven parallel bars. On the men's side, 2 rotations. And Conrad Voorsanger is easily outdistancing Brad Hayashi by a 2.2 margin. Right now, the men are ready to compete on their third event, which is the still rings.
I wish Brad were making a better run of it. He's a really talented young gymnast. He made some silly errors, and as you mentioned earlier, errors that a junior gymnast will make. We've all made. And yet he has a bright future, and certainly Conrad is an outstanding gymnast. But Brad could have made it a real close competition if he didn't make some silly errors early on. But we're still interested in seeing the kinds of gymnastics qualities that have made Brad one of the top juniors in the U.S. to this point.
Well, we saw the same thing happen in an earlier show. One gymnast had difficulty on the pommel horse and then later rallied to come back and win it. So it's not over until the 6th rotation.
Really a nice mount for Conrad. He did a kip to an L cross. That position's called an L. Just looks just like an L. Press to a straddle flange and a giant to a handstand. Whoa, a little trouble controlling that handstand.
See, and all these little things will start opening the door if Brad can capitalize on it.
He has said good swing work, good strength work. Oh, and an excellent dismount. That's a double backflip with a full twist in sort of a laid-out piked position. I'm sure he wanted to do it perfectly laid out. He piked a little bit, but needless to say, that was a great dismount. This is the flange, a straddle flange, and a giant right to the handstand. Now, he needs to lock this out, but you can see the cables bounce around a little bit. He doesn't quite hold the handstand before he bails for the next skill. He needs to show control there. This is the bail for the dismount. Really great. Full twisting double back.
Good job by Conrad Voorsanger. Again, his margin of lead right now is 2.20, so he can relax just a little bit, but not too much. For those of you that saw show number 2, Kyle Asano was trailing throughout 4 rotations and came back in the last 2 events to win it and advance into the next round.
I think what will be an important test here for Brad Hayashi is that he has had trouble early on, and it'll be interesting to see how he reacts and whether he can rally. And he has 4 events yet to go, and if he can put it together and finish up on a strong day, that will be a good sign. I think the Gymnastics Federation is looking to see how these young gymnasts handle the kind of pressure of national meets like this, even when things are going poorly.
There you see the number, 9.45 for Conrad Voorsanger. And now Brad Hayashi will compete on the still rings.
Let's pull to an inverted hang. Back up rise handstand. A little short on that handstand. It's a power down to a move called an Olympic cross. You don't see a lot of those anymore. It's really a nice move. Kip to another cross. This is good so far. He's a young man. He's only 17 years old, and yet he's showing good strength moves, which is something that the Gymnastics Federation and the judges are really looking for. There's a front giant. He really has a problem in his handstand. He can't really lock out his handstands, but he can really swing. He did a good dismount there, a little short on the landing, but that was a full twisting double back.
Brad Hayashi, 17 years of age, born in Newport Beach, California, currently lives in Irvine, California.
He lowers right here, to a cross, and you see he turns sideways. That's the old style rings, and it really is great stuff. I love all those old strength moves. Really, really interesting looking. This is a giant over the top, good swing, full twisting double. He opens up just a little early and slaps a hand down, which will be a significant deduction.
Score for Brad Hayashi, 8.75. Conrad Voorsanger, you'll recall, 9.45 for the still rings. Now we are ready to move to the second event for the women, the uneven parallel bars. Liz Crandall, who is training now in Tempe, still calls Sacramento, California home, even though she's living away from home to train with Stormy Eaton.
She used to train in the Bay Area, in fact, and one of her heroes is Tracy Talavera from the women's team. Tracy also spent some time coaching her, and you can see some of Talavera's contributions because Tracy was known for her bars, and Elisabeth is very exciting on the unevens. Nice giants. Beautifully high reverse hecht. And the straddle back to the low bar. He has to show elements on both the high bar and the low bar. Oh, and she fights that handstand. Good job at keeping control.
She pulled that thing back. That move defied gravity. I mean, she was beyond the point of pulling it back and somehow pulled it back.
Yeah, she's a fighter, and that's impressive to see. Watch this move right here. It's the back straddle over the bar, reverse hecht, or a Tkachev, invented by the Soviet gymnast, Alexander Tkachev, for the men's high bar, and the women have doing it on the uneven bars for 6 or 8 years now. It's a very exciting addition to the uneven bars event. She really cowboys that tuck double back. In fact, her coach told me she can do a triple into the pit, and maybe one day we'll see the first women do a triple off bars.
The score for Liz Crandall, 9.40. Again, she and Lisa Panzironi both received 9.7s for their vault. So now whatever Lisa Panzironi gets on the uneven parallel bars will determine who's the leader after 2 rotations, unless, of course, she too gets a 9.4.
Lisa trains in Allentown, Pennsylvania with the traditionally strong parkettes program. Nice release. That's the same release we saw Liz Crandall use. And another move, a front between the bars or a Jaeger flip in combination, 2 releases in a row is a very important element. Good cast to handstand. This is a good exercise. And a pike double. She slung it out a little bit, but she pulled it around and saved the landing.
So you're saying at the end she was a little too horizontal, needed a little more vertical?
I thought she kind of peeled off, as we say in gymnastics, but she did a really good job at controlling it. This is the reverse hecht. Perfect form, huh? Nice toe point, good straight legs, and right in the middle, a Jaeger flip, straddled front. This is the dismount. She's going to do a pike double back, and she lets go just a hair early, and she really carried forward, but she pulled the rotation around and did a nice job handling that.
Lisa Panzironi needs to get better than a 9.40, but she's to take the lead after 2 events. And there are 2 events remaining for the women after the uneven parallel bars. They still have the balance beam, and of course that'll be followed by floor exercise. The men still have 3 rotations remaining: parallel bars, vaulting, and the high bar. The score for Lisa Panzironi is 9.575, and by a 1.175 margin, she's our leader.
So what's little dandruff?
Conrad Voorsanger leads Brad Hayashi 28.3 to 25.4 for a 2.90 advantage. On the women's side, Lisa Panzironi is ahead of Liz Crandall, 19.275 to 19.1, or a 0.175 margin. Right now we are ready for the balance beam, which is the 3rd event of 4 for the women, while the men will move to vaulting for their 4th event of 6. This is Lisa Panzironi, the 16-year-old from Lima, Ohio, currently lives in Columbus, Ohio, but is in training now in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Lisa has a real wealth of national and international experience. She's been on the senior national team for 3 years, and her competitor, Elisabeth Crandall, is still yet a junior, but she's been on the junior national team for 2 years. So in a way, it's kind of the seniors versus the juniors here. Swing through layout, nicely done. There's a full turn, that's a requirement, of course. Here she's setting up for an acro series. It's a series of flips, back handspring to a layout. The judges are looking for several things. Leaps like that. They need to see a combination of leaps or a gymnastics series. They need to see an acro series, which we saw earlier with the back handspring through to the layout.
That, of course, is referring to acrobatic in terms of tumbling when you say acro series.
They also need to see a mixed series, which includes both an acrobatic move and a gymnastic move. So far, so good. And a round off tuck double back. Great dismount. It looked easy for her, and that's still one of the more difficult dismounts being done.
She did have a slight hesitation on her mount, but after that, it was very smooth sailing.
This is the back handspring. Right to a layout. Does a good job at keeping that baby on the beam. And then here's the dismount. This is excellent. Round off. Good lift. Excellent form in the air, even with toes pointed, and that's a very difficult way to go through two flips, trying to worry about form. Good job.
Right now, she is ahead of Elisabeth Crandall by a .175 margin, and certainly that performance didn't hurt her at all. As you look now at Liz Crandall, who is waiting for the beam score of Lisa Panzironi.
Score for Lisa Panzironi is now going up.
Now they're getting ready to announce those numbers. 9.60 for Lisa Panzironi on the balance beam. And now Liz Crandall will mount.
Liz had a big success this past December when she was 7th in the all-around in the very prestigious international invitational, the Chunichi Cup in Japan. She says this is her favorite event. Here's her acro series. Back handspring layout. Switch legs, split leaps.
In order to take the lead, she needs a 9.8.
Boy, she can do this stuff, although she had a little trouble on that full turn, which is a requirement. She handled this swing through layout beautifully. Aerial. She covered that. I like how she takes her time. She's very powerful, but she doesn't really rush. She takes long, fluid movements.
Warning.
Tuck double. Good job.
4'7" Liz Crandall, the smallest gymnast in the U.S. Challenge this year. Just 14 years of age, only 2 years on the junior national team.
This is a very good series. She does back handspring, and she does this layout, but notice she lands with her feet together on the beam rather than step down as you've seen some of the other competitors do. Watch this dismount, though, in comparison with some of the others. Look at how wide she pulls those legs apart. She really cowboys. Not the pretty form in the air that you saw from Lisa Panzironi, but it was effective. She made it.
We see a lot of gymnasts cowboy to pull it around to speed the rotation. Is that a deduction for form?
Yeah, and it happens so quickly sometimes it's hard for the judges to really get a good fix on how bad the form break was. But the judges are supposed to deduct for that. I don't know that they always do.
9.575, not a big deduction because Liz Panzironi received a 9.60. So the margin of difference is just a little bit greater, but certainly Liz Crandall is still within reach of Lisa Panzironi. Now you are looking at Brad Hayashi, who is getting ready to vault.